and researched with Isaac Darlington.
I've gotten a couple of messages on my WhatsApp, in my inbox, different social media platforms, and the question is usually from people, of course, who have been in the field of doing voiceovers, in the field of production. And the question is usually, hey man, I would like to work for a radio station, or do you know of anybody that would want a radio producer? I get those questions a lot, and it takes me back sometimes to when I just started producing or being a voiceover artist. When I joined radio, my first thoughts were, I want to be a radio presenter. That's where my minds were at that time. And the person that I met in the studio at that time, that was Alan Muchivi. He told me, I think your voice would sound really great for this. I remember he gave me a newspaper and told me, read that. And then after I read a couple of, I think it was one story, he was like, my God. He was like, he was blown away. In my mind, I thought, wow, this is it. But I didn't start producing then, nor did I start immediately being a voiceover artist. In fact, it took me about 2 years before my voice was properly being used on radio. It's been a process, and the process is what many of us creatives do not appreciate. I understand, because I'm a creative. As a creative, I have this urgency, the need for speed. We want good things and we want them fast. We don't want to wait. We don't want to go through the process. So I started my journey like that, radio. I say this to say this. The journey is beautiful. It's one worth taking. But we are in a situation where there is a bunch of producers, and not everyone will get to work for a radio. I'm a person who has been in media for quite a while. Yes, there is money, but again, there is also no money. Depending on which media house you're working for, depending on the business, depending on the reach of the radio station, and a bunch of other things. Management, competition is really stiff these days. In Mbale, we have a bunch of radio stations. Those days, it was a bit fewer. Now there are more. In Kampala, then we have online radio. Then we have TikTok channels. Then we have YouTube channels. We have audio visual, which is where the world is really heading to these days. In fact, if you're doing radio and you have not thought about getting your radio, the audio bit of it, hey, that's something you should consider. Podcasts and everything. So anyway, creativity should go beyond just wanting to work for a radio or wanting to work for someone. I understand the need to work for someone as a person who is starting, because I worked under people. I've worked under people who have mentored me. I've worked under different radio stations, with different radio stations, both in Mbale and in Kampala. Though in Kampala, I was really, really, really low-key. I was an apprentice, and I learned a lot. But what happens if you do not get a chance? Because most likely you might not get the chance to work for a radio. A radio needs only one radio producer. That's basically it. Other people might be able to produce, but again, they won't be the official radio producers. So a radio needs one radio producer. So what happens to the rest of, the rest of the talent out here? I'm now a freelance radio producer. I say radio just to specify, because there's a lot of producers. There's music producers. So I use radio producer because it is easy. I'm in the line of media, broadcast media, and stuff like that. So consider the following. There is a lot of ways you can learn, because I've received the question, how can we link up? How can I learn? There is a lot of ways you can learn. A really great tool that I have used as an individual is social media. I learned so much just by scrolling through TikTok and seeing someone produce, or hearing how someone is, sounding, doing a voiceover. YouTube, There are so many tutorials. In fact, YouTube has someone made a joke and said YouTube has everything, and that's basically because it does. I have seen stuff on YouTube that has helped polish me up a lot. And then I have, of course, interacted. Me, I'm one of the few lucky people that has actually sat under mentorship. Yes, I will say that. But what happens if you don't? If you don't have access to that, you don't let it stop you. You start where you're at and keep on growing. You have access to a laptop. You have access to internet. Start there. You know, a lot of voice over artists will tell you, I started by using a phone. It sounds so cliche, but true. You start with a phone, and then you'll grow from there. Now, this is an appeal to the clients that reach out, and you probably want to work with talent. Consider also working with people who seem like they're new in the field. There is a lot of talent with the new. I don't want to say the new, but people that are not known. Yeah. Yes, experience builds. Voiceover artists who have more experience deliver better. That's fact. Because you've worked with a bunch of people, you've gotten different, you've done documentaries, so you'll obviously have more. But then for a client, also consider working with a person who might not have a big company under their belt, a big company like maybe Coca-Cola or what, and maybe they've been doing their voice over and you feel like you could work with their voice. But just because they have not worked with a big company, you're thinking, this one, I need someone who has worked with. No, give the young talents a chance. Give, not the young talents, but the underdogs. The people that we don't know. Because for everybody that is now known, they started somewhere and they were once an underdog. Started by someone giving them a shot, and then they finally got to where they are now. So, give the underdog a chance to show you that they can produce, to show you that they can work. And then, for us who are in media, also consider just being a freelance person. If you keep looking for a radio to work with, if you keep looking for, you might never get that opportunity. So you start with what you have. Start with your TikTok channel, post up stuff, get your content out there, and even if you're impacting 10 people or 5 or 50, it's a start. Even if you have a following of 100 people, do that, because again, you are not going to put yourself in a position where you want to compete constantly with people that have been in the game for a long time or with the bigger media houses. Obviously, those guys will have a higher chance of being up there. But then your small link-ups, this small following, you never really know who's watching. So take your content. OTH, what's there to lose? If you're not good, well, there's a lot of people who are not good. If you're good, perfect. You link up with the people that can actually build you and build your content. So that's very important. I have met with people who interactions, and the budgets, a client has a budget of a certain figure. However, the work they're requesting for, the service they're requesting for is, it does not, it requires maybe more money. Now, for a person who is just beginning in media, take up the small gigs, take up the small monies. But as you build, as you keep going, set a standard. Keep setting standards. Say, okay, now I've moved up here. This is it. Now, there are clients that I promise you will end up missing because you're building yourself or you're setting standards. But there are clients that you're going to end up gaining. So this is all in my journey. I've been able to learn a couple of things. And this is just something I would share with you. Set your standard as you go. But at the beginning of your work, at the beginning of your media production, if you're just starting, why would you want to charge 300,000 for a voiceover? Just because you've graduated from the university and you've done media and maybe you've voiced maybe 5 or 6, ads. And these ads were just, you practicing. No, take time, grow into the thing, grow into the media. As you keep going, your price will grow with your experience. For now, that's my advice to anybody that's just thinking about joining the media fraternity, the voiceover business, the radio production business. Start small, then grow.
Unresearched with Isaac Darlington.